What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast, the Pittsburgh Steelers. There is one giant looming question that sits well atop any other questions the Pittsburgh Steelers have to and will answer this offseason, and that is the quarterback position. Well, there's growing belief, and it is getting hot real fast, that the Pittsburgh Steelers have their quarterback of 2025. And, well, maybe a lot of people are going to get their wish in the process. No, it's not Aaron Rodgers, but we'll dive into it in a little bit. Meanwhile, Arthur Smith isn't going anywhere. It looks like he's staying with the Pittsburgh Steelers, unless there's some rather drastic, unforeseen change. And the question looms, should we be happy about it? Should fans be happy about it? Should the team be happy that they are keeping Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator? And it's Super Bowl, almost NFC divisional week, but it's Super Bowl talk. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're guaranteed to have a champion this season. At least a former Pittsburgh Steeler is guaranteed to be a champion this season. Well, we're picking our favorite. Plus, we're going to answer all your questions as we do every day. Nick, I got glorious news, my friend. Fantastic news. Sometime around, I don't know, 1 p.m. yesterday, it decided it was done snowing here in the city of Pittsburgh, and it hasn't started yet. Our roads are drivable, and, the sun's shining. I don't care that it's -2 degrees. It's a good day here in the Berg. How you feeling, my friend?
Well, I am very, very glad that you can finally get to the grocery store for milk and bread. So make sure you're stocked up because it's January in Pennsylvania. So I'm sure it's going to start again. But no, I'm in a great mood because even though last night it was nice to see Notre Dame make a game out of it, I did have Ohio State -8.5. So I was sweating. I was sweating for a while there. But fortunately, my wallet was happy. Everybody in the state of Ohio was happy. And Notre Dame, while they're probably upset, at least they made a game out of it, right?
Yeah, they did make a game out of it. I almost shut it off. It was 28-7. I said, all right, we're done. I also took Ohio State 8.5. I'm sorry to all my Notre Dame fans that I grew up with that are going to watch this and be super pissed at me. But sometimes you got to go with what's going to happen.
Right in front of your face.
Yeah, and this one was as obvious as could be that Ohio State was going to pull this one off. I almost turned it off at 28-7. I said, all right, I'm going to bed. This is pointless. Decided not to. Glad I didn't. Also glad that they lost by more than the spread because I was getting a little, what are we going to do here? How close are we going to get this? Let's calm it down. But yeah, it was a good night. And yes, I have gone to the grocery. It was actually the first thing I did this morning was go to the grocery. I walked into Target at 8 a.m. and walked out at 8:15. It was a beautiful time. All right, let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football. We're going to start with Arthur Smith here. It appears the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to keep their offensive coordinator in 2025. Arthur Smith, while offered or at least called about the North Carolina job, interviewed for the New York Jets and the Chicago Bears. Well, the Detroit Lions said, no way, pal, not happening. We are sending our coordinators to both of those teams, and you will not get an opportunity to be head coach again in 2025. Aaron Glenn is expected to sign with the New York Jets. I wouldn't even be surprised if by the time you are listening to this pre or post live that he has inked a deal and the Jets' new head coach. And Ben Johnson is on his way to Chicago, which happened about 2 hours after I sat on this podcast yesterday and said nobody wants to go to Chicago. I was off. It was all right. Doesn't look like Arthur Smith is going anywhere this season. He will remain in Pittsburgh. I do not expect him to be one of the coaching changes of any coaching changes that the Pittsburgh Steelers have yet to announce. So it looks like he will be the play caller for another season. We'll dive into the quarterback here in a minute and what that means and how that changes things. But I think it's a big, giant, looming question. I mean, I got a text from my father-in-law, I don't know, a week ago now, saying Arthur Smith is getting all of these head coaching interviews, and is it just me, or was he not impressive enough in my eyes to get head coaching interviews, to be a candidate? Like, why is that surprising to me? And also, should the Steelers, should the fans be happy that he might leave to be a head coach? And I think that answer is complicated because, yeah, maybe there is some flashy, young, inexperienced coming up offensive coordinator option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I would imagine there's a couple. I mean, the New England Patriots are about to hire Josh McDaniels, which means that guys like Josh McCown are still open. Guys like, I mean, if you want to go get Gerard Johnson, still open. Clint Kubiak doesn't want to go back to the New Orleans Saints, apparently, or at least that's what people are talking about. Cool. Go interview him. Instead, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to stick with Arthur Smith. And you're thinking, yeah, all right, Arthur Smith is a well-respected offensive coordinator in the NFL. He's a guy that a lot of teams would want, a guy that would probably have a job within no time in the NFL if he did decide to leave Pittsburgh or if the Steelers decided to move on from him. I think a lot of people say the same things about Mike Tomlin, and maybe it's a little bit of PTSD to go, yeah, we already have, the Steelers have the head coach that would have a job in 10 minutes if he left, and half the fan base doesn't want him here. Maybe it's feeling the same way about Arthur Smith. So I'll ask you, as I just laid it out there, I got a lot of thoughts, but I'm excited to hear yours. Should the Pittsburgh Steelers and should their fans, I think that's the big one here, should anybody be happy that Arthur Smith is coming back to the Steelers?
There's certainly reason to be, I wouldn't say ecstatic, because we all watched that offense in 2024. It wasn't great. It wasn't fun. It wasn't exciting, but it was effective at some points. And I think what you can say is, while I know that nobody wants to hear consistency is a good thing, especially on a team that has suffered through the same thing over and over again with Mike Tomlin, and that's been the main reasoning is, hey, consistency is a good thing. But when it comes to an offensive coordinator and only having 1 year on the job with that organization, that type of consistency is good for certain things, right? It's good for your offensive line. It's good for your quarterback, whoever that may be, if they're coming back for a second year. It's good for your wide receivers. It's good for your running backs. It's good for these players that are young and trying to mold into what they want to become at the NFL level. Because if you have to have a new offensive coordinator and you have to learn an entirely new offense in year 2 in the NFL, that's for guys like Roman Wilson. That's for guys like Troy Fautanu. That's for a guy like Broderick Jones, who would have to be learning his 3rd offense in 3 years. Consistency is a good thing. And I do think that there is room for improvement for Arthur Smith. Part of that is personnel. Maybe if they cut Cordero Patterson, you can't go to Cordero Patterson on certain plays. So maybe that fixes itself. But I do think that there are reasons to be excited that Arthur Smith is coming back. Not to mention, you mentioned the alternative is, hey, there's a lot of young, hot shot, exciting Steelers aren't hiring them. They're going to hire the up-and-coming Arthur Smith offensive coordinator. They're not hiring Clint Kubiak. They're not hiring anybody off the Sean McVay tree. That's not going to be the case. They interviewed Zach Robinson, but they didn't have a chance at Zach Robinson last offseason. So do I think that there's reason to be excited? Yes. Am I jumping for joy that he's coming back? No, because he still has to prove it.
Yeah, I agree. I look at Arthur Smith as a guy that liked Justin Fields, which we'll dive into the elephant in the room here in a minute, which is the quarterback and Justin Fields. He liked Justin Fields. Justin Fields really liked Arthur Smith. The players love him. And I think that there were reasons to give him excuses. Okay, Russell Wilson was at the end of his career. Mike Tomlin made sure that everything was dialed back and nothing was able to happen when Justin Fields was on the field. It was, hey, do not lose this football game. We got to win these. Okay, great. We're going to play real conservative offense. I think that there's a lot of room for growth there. By the time Russ came in, you completely switched your offense. Arthur Smith went a whole offseason training with Justin Fields to get 6 weeks with them before he had to work with the starting quarterback that he didn't have an offense designed for, because he designed the offense over the summer, and then Russ gets hurt the first day of training camp, and Justin's got to be the guy, and you're working with Justin. And yeah, Mike Tomlin might be having conversations like, Russ is still the guy when you're out there, but you can't put an offense into place working with the backup quarterback while Russ sits in the sidelines. To get a full summer with a guy, the guy, maybe that's Justin Fields, it sounds like it's going to be, then that has to increase your potential in 2025. It has to open the door for better outcomes in 2025. On top of that, I agree with you. The roster turnover is going to be the biggest one here. Cordero Patterson. I would expect that the snow shoveling tweet was the last thing he says about the Pittsburgh Steelers until he's cut. That's what I would expect to happen. You're moving Broderick to the left side and you're hoping that it works out. You're getting Troy Fautanu back and you're hoping that it works out. If those two, Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick can all take steps forward, you have an offensive line. Hopefully you have your quarterback. And then I'm sorry, but I think it would, I just don't think in my wildest dreams do I see Van Jefferson and Ben Skoranek being wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 in 2025. I fully anticipate real wide receiver options to go with Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson and possibly George Pickens. But there is reason to say maybe Arthur Smith deserves one more season, and there's expectations that should be higher in that second season to give him a real opportunity to work with these guys and develop and to build that camaraderie and chemistry with not just him and the players, but the players and the system. And that I think is big. That I think could be very big. Now, is he the best option out there? No, but like you said, maybe the Steelers wouldn't go out and get a splashy guy. Maybe they'd end up with Gerard Johnson or Tom Arth as their offensive coordinator. And yeah, okay, great. Up and coming, exciting. I don't know if I'd pick them over Arthur Smith and say, I feel better about this move. So the Steelers might be in their best spot. If there's going to be one storyline that I attach myself to, that's like, hey, this is going to be good. This is going to work out better than we expected to. This is something to have hope to. It might be Arthur Smith in year 2. It might be year 2. Arthur Smith might be okay. I truly believe it. I mean, you got to think that at some point this summer, he's going to be watching film and saying, you want to know what I don't think worked last year? I don't think the pitch worked. I think we could remove the pitch. It might be better. I think at some point you're going to stare yourself in the mirror and say that. I got faith in Arthur Smith. I think it's a good thing that he's coming back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see what happens. On the other side of it, seems like the Steelers have their quarterback, or at least all the insiders are talking about it. Yeah, well, it's not Russ, pal. It ain't going to be Russ. I mean, the reports of Russ being the guy have been shut down a dozen times at this point. People have floated other names out there. But those who stay around the team, who have a grip on the team, who know the team, who have sources inside that team better than anybody else, they're saying Justin Fields, my friend. And they're saying Justin Fields over everybody. Justin Fields over Sam Darnold. Justin Fields over Kirk Cousins. Justin Fields over Aaron Rodgers, over Russell Wilson, over Daniel Jones. Some expect the Steelers to draft a quarterback, but it feels like Justin Fields is the guy. I don't know if you read Jerry Dulac's article today, and our saying, we've said it way too much in the last 2 weeks. So we'll say it one more time, then we'll put it on pause. When Dulac speaks, you listen. He said, Justin Fields has the same skill set as Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Jaden Daniels. Even if he's not as good, he's got that same skill set. The Steelers are high on it. Seems almost certain that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going with Justin Fields. We're going to talk about what they could do around him, but first I want your reaction to, news that still hasn't come, and there's still a long way to go into this. They have to do negotiations. Justin Fields has to be just as in on the Pittsburgh Steelers as the Pittsburgh Steelers are or seem to be on Justin Fields. You never know what happens, You just never know who emerges somewhere or who steals the attention from the Pittsburgh Steelers or from Justin Fields. But it feels like Justin's going to be the guy. Your thoughts on Justin, like almost, the storyline's heating up. The belief is starting to grow that Justin's going to be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Good. Good. I'm glad. Whenever measuring Justin Fields to, if you're going to measure him against Jaden Daniels and Josh Allen, no, he's not going to stack up. He's not going to be in the same conversation. He's not going to be in the same zip code. But whenever you look at the field, and the field is Russell Wilson, Sam Darnold, Joe Flacco, Daniel Jones, then I would take Justin Fields over that field. I would hope that the Steelers would look at that and say, hey, this guy with a year of experience in our organization, a guy that we said just needs to learn behind a veteran like Russell Wilson for a year, and then did sit and learn behind Russell Wilson for a year. I'm glad that the organization looks at that and says there's value in that. So my reaction to them, at least seemingly heating up towards the possibility of retaining Justin Fields for 25, good. I'm glad.
I'm also glad. And that is a fantastic point. It is the biggest argument for Justin Fields is that last year, a year and 2 months ago, we sat on this podcast. The entire world sat on podcasts and the radio and ESPN and so on and so forth. They wrote stories. They talked in bars. The family, it doesn't matter. Everybody was saying the same thing. A year behind Russ is going to be, that's really good for Justin. That might be huge for Justin Fields. Maybe Russ should be the starter, but Justin should be the option long-term. Well, that seemed to work out really well. And the Pittsburgh Steelers got 6 weeks of him to say, hey, he's not losing games as a starting quarterback. In fact, he's almost winning almost all of them. That's impressive. That's exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers wanted. I mean, Justin, it is way too young in Justin Fields' career. And if we're going to do things like say Broderick Jones is in his third offense, Pat Fryermuth's in his third offense, then you have to say the same thing about Justin Fields. He has never had stability. He has never had a consistent offensive coordinator. He has never had consistency. I mean, you have to remember that at one point, his wide receiver core included Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney as their 2 and their 2B. I mean, that's Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek level bad. It's terrible. I think that a year, 2 years with the same offensive coordinator in the same system, in the same environment, with the same faith in your coaching staff makes a massive difference. And he was picked 11th overall, dude. Like this guy was first round talent. This guy was, you trade up to go get Justin Fields. You know, people were talking about Justin was there. And then last year we're talking about trade a first round pick for him. Go trade a first round pick for him. You get him at 20. He's the best pick you could get at 20. Well, here he is. And he got him for a 6th round pick. And he got a year behind Russell Wilson. Seems like it worked out perfectly for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If it works out, because we don't know yet. So the next question to that is, what do you do if you have your quarterback? Okay. And I don't care if he's a bridge quarterback, if he's a tester, it doesn't matter. The Pittsburgh Steelers are looking to win a Super Bowl in 2025. They're looking to get over the hump. They're pissed off. The fan base is pissed off. The NFL's laughing at them like they're a joke. It is time to get this right. And that's going to be the mindset going in the offseason. If Justin's your quarterback, if Justin's the guy that you are going to build a team around, what do you do? Where do you go? And how do you build a support system for Justin Fields?
Weapons. I mean, you can say build a better offensive line, but your hope is health and consistency are a better thing in 2025 than it was in 2024. Like you mentioned earlier in the show, you get Troy Fautanu back. He starts at right. You move Broderick over to left. You hope that that gets better. And you sign a true, not a Dan Moore. He can try on the right, but he's really better on the... No, a true swing tackle in case one of them, God forbid, takes another step back and needs to be taken out of the lineup. That happened with Broderick. He got taken out, and then he was forced back in and forced to stay on that right side. He was locked into a position that he shouldn't be playing. So you hope that that one minor switch and some consistency and a year 2 jump for a guy who was named to an all-rookie team today in Zach Frazier, and a year 2 jump for a guy that showed flashes in Mason McCormick, and you hope that the line figures it out. But then you need to go out there and you need to get weapons. Right? If Najee Harris is gone, you need Caleb Johnson, we've talked about. Quinshon Judkins scored 3 freaking touchdowns yesterday. That guy would be helpful in the Steelers offense. You go out there and you get one of these very talented young running backs, or maybe you get an Aaron Jones, whatever. You need to get talent to put next to and pair with Jaylen Warren. And then you need at least one, probably 2 wide receivers that are able to come in here and get open on a consistent basis. The only one on the Steelers that could was George Pickens. And he's not even a guy that gets open. He doesn't get separation. He just doesn't need separation. You need somebody that's going to get separation. Is that Roman Wilson? Maybe. Is that Emeka Ibuka in the first round? Maybe. Is that Luther Burden in the first round? Maybe. There are options. Is that, Devontae Adams, if he becomes a free agent? He said today that he doesn't know if he can go to Washington because he doesn't want to give up 17. Well, you don't have to give up 17 in Pittsburgh. The last one to wear it was, why can't I think of his first name? Trenton Thompson.
Shout out Trenton Thompson.
Trenton Thompson. So you don't have to give up 17. So maybe it's Devontae or maybe it's T. But the point is, get weapons. And Zach Azani, who I liked what he did in year 1, for the love of God, teach these guys that when there's a scramble drill, because if Justin Fields is the guy, there will be plenty of scramble drills, come back to the ball and get in the line of sight, because that didn't happen nearly enough this year whenever the Steelers quarterbacks were under duress. So teach them that and go out there and get more talent around Justin Fields. That's what they need to do.
I agree 100%. And the Zach Azani teaching the guys to come back to that is huge. And that is a veteran move that the Pittsburgh Steelers did not have last season, but it showed who they had. They had Van Jefferson, who worked in LA's offense where there was no scramble drill. If Matt Stafford was under pressure, there was a sack. That's what happened. You either ran your route and it worked, or you ran your route and it didn't work. That's what Van Jefferson knew how to do. George Pickens comes back to the ball unless he gives up on the play. And Calvin Austin's a guy, it happens. Calvin Austin's a guy that I think is still developing, needs to learn these things. But I agree with you 100%. That would be huge. And that comes with veteran play. So that's the second part of this, is you have to go get weapons. And you can't not go get the biggest weapons possible. This can't be we have George Pickens, we're going to go get Christian Kirk. No. You have to go get T. Higgins. You have to go get a first-round pick. You have to go get Devontae Adams. You have to go get DK Metcalf, if DK Metcalf is available, which people are talking about he is now. You have to go get Tyreek Hill, who is apparently available as well. Like, you have to get these guys. You can't sit there and say, we have one, it'll work out. No. Calvin Austin should be wide receiver 3, and Roman Wilson should be wide receiver 4, and you should have enough guys where you have to come up with playing time. You have to truly earn playing time in Pittsburgh. Nothing should be handed to you. And the second part of this is you got to give Justin the reins. You got to, building the offensive line is huge. Weapons is huge. The coaching staff is huge. Justin Fields has to be the guy that is always with Arthur Smith. Justin Fields has to be the guy that you sit down at the beginning of the summer and you formulate your defense or your offense, around Justin Fields. What do you like to do? What can we do better here? How did we operate in those 6 games and what can we change? How do we use your legs? How do we use your arms? Who do you like to go to? He should have say in some of these free agency moves. Like, that's make him a franchise quarterback. Even if he's not, even if it doesn't work out, build this as if he is. And if it doesn't work out, what? You end up with T. Higgins. You end up with DK Metcalf. And you go, oh, damn it. Didn't work out with Justin. No quarterback's going to like these guys. Every quarterback's going to like these guys. I think you sit down and you operate as if last year Russ was the guy. All of the Steelers' decisions based itself around Russ. Do the same with Justin Fields. Make this his offense. See what happens in a year. And that's the thing about the Pittsburgh Steelers. They don't sign guys to 3-year deals worth $75 million or whatever the number will be unless they could get out of that contract in year 1. If they can leave, just like the Patrick Queen deal, just like the James Daniels deal, just like the Isaac Seumalo deal, just like the Mason Cole deal and the Nate Herbig deal, and all of the Cole Holcomb deal, all of the deals that the Pittsburgh Steelers have put together over the last couple of years, they all fall under the same jurisdiction. After the first year, if you do not work, you are gone. They do it constantly. They'll do it again. So operate as if you could build this around Justin and see if you can. And if you can't, well, okay, great. You try again. But if you're looking for a Super Bowl, if this is a real, you're going to try it, you can't view Justin as a bridge quarterback, because that's just not, that's what you did with Mitch and it didn't work. That's what you did with Russ and it didn't work. It's time to, it's time to find the guy, and you might as well just start treating every single one of them like it is. Think about Kenny Pickett. When the Steelers gave Kenny the offense, it worked really well. But that second year, the Steelers gave Kenny the offense. Like, Kenny Pickett was the quarterback, the guy that all offseason long, they operated as Kenny is the dude. How do we make this offense the best it could be around Kenny Pickett? You have to do the same thing with Justin, because that offense was terrible, but it was built way better than the offense that the Steelers had this year, because they actually had talent. They just didn't have an offensive coordinator. They had the opposite of an offensive coordinator. They had the worst play caller, maybe in NFL history. And now you have a play caller. Build an offense around your quarterback. See if it works. If it doesn't, try again. If it does, awesome. You just found a diamond in the rough that everybody else gave up on. I think that's where you go from here. And find him a good backup quarterback, like a good veteran. Go get Joe Flacco. That actually might be a great move. Go get Joe Flacco and just say, teach him how to play quarterback. Go get Tyrod Taylor. Teach him how to play quarterback.
If you get Joe Flacco, the only rule is you can only sign him to a 1-year deal, and he has to sign an addendum with Cincinnati that he plays for them the following season. That way he can just finish checking off the AFC North team boxes.
I think that's a real, I wouldn't shut that down. Like, if Joe Flacco was available and the Bengals needed a quarterback, they'd call Joe Flacco. They would call Joe Flacco. That's what I'm doing there. We'll see what happens. There's plenty of time left, a lot of negotiations. The storyline is just starting to heat up. But, man, it feels like Justin Fields is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback in 2025. And to be honest with you, I'm a little excited about it. I'm a little excited that it's working out the way that it is, because I was a big Justin guy a year ago. I have not lost that faith. It tempered for a minute in training camp, but it's back. We're here. We're lively. All right, let's finish off the show with this bad boy. The Pittsburgh Steelers will not be in the Super Bowl this year. Super Bowl LIX, Lynx. What are you saying? Lynx?
I'm not saying it because it's a Roman numeral, but sure, go off, King.
It should have a name. Super Bowl Lynx. But they will have a former player win the whole thing, no matter what, which is one of the most depressing things you could possibly have happen as an organization, especially when two of them are your former starting quarterbacks. One of them's your former second-round pick. And other guys are just, some of them were former starters. Some of them were here for 3 days. Some of them got hurt the first day of training camp. Some of them should have been on your practice squad this year, but instead you just decided, now we're good. I'm going to name them off by team. Let's decide who we want to win the Super Bowl. We'll create your Pittsburgh Steelers rooting guide here based on former players. With Kansas City, the obvious one is Juju Smith-Schuster. He's already got one, caught a game-winning Super Bowl touchdown. What was that, 2 years ago now? And 3 years ago now? And he's now back with Kansas City, a name that, people said the Steelers should have signed. He went to Kansas City. He had one hell of a game. I don't think he did anything after that, but he's here. He's in the playoffs, AFC Championship once again. Kansas City also has Darius Rush, the guy that should have been the Steelers' breakout corner in 2025, 2024. Didn't happen. And good old Steven Nelson, man, who, if you were in this for Juju and you were in this for Darius Rush, you might be out of it because of Steven Nelson and the things he said over the years about the Pittsburgh Steelers. In Washington, these are the biggest bangers that we've got here. Michael Walker, former Pittsburgh Steelers savior at inside linebacker, a coverage guy that, he tried. He did his best in a defense that was banged up, my friend. And Jeremy McNichols, who I remember the Pittsburgh Steelers signing. I interviewed him the opening day of training camp. I said, "You excited to be here?" It was me and him. We were talking 5 minutes. He seemed like a really nice guy. And then that afternoon, he broke his shoulder and never played again for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was a tragedy. And then he got the bangers, my friend. In Buffalo, good old Mitch Trubisky. And in Philadelphia, good old Kenny Pickett. Man, oh man, what a list we've got. I'll let you go first. Who are you rooting for?
I feel like everybody in Pittsburgh is going to choose to root for Kenny Pickett, right? Like everybody in Pittsburgh wants to see Kenny Pickett succeed. I haven't heard anything to the contrary since he left the city. I thought everybody wanted him to succeed.
Even when he was in the city, even at the end and before, the whole time, actually. Biggest fans of Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, basically since he got drafted, since he put on a Steelers hat. So you know what? I would be surprised if everybody else isn't going for Kenny. So for that reason, I'll go a different direction here. And honestly,
good call.
Let's see Jeremy McNichols do it. I want to see Jeremy McNichols and Michael Walker. Let's go Washington. Not just because it's local to me, because it is, but because why not go with the guy that was on the Steelers for a handful of minutes, right? Why not go with the guy that probably would not have lasted in backs on backers if his shoulder blew up in the first day of training camp? So you know what? Shout out Jeremy McNichols. He's a fun player. That's a fun offense. I'd say if you're rooting for a former Steeler, you're rooting for that one, because not only because he's just on a team that's more likable, but secondly, because he didn't hurt the Steelers really at all. Like you go to Mitch, he did some damage to the Steelers for a couple of years. You go to Kenny, he did some damage to the Steelers for a little bit. You go to Juju unjustly, but I think there's people that would say that he did some damage. Yeah, he did have a couple big fumbles, so he did some damage. Yeah. Jeremy McNichols didn't do very much damage at all. Michael Walker is on the
lots of damage.
Squad, so
let's not act like it wasn't a ridiculous amount of damage there.
But he's on the practice squad in Washington. So you know what? I'm willing to look past that. I'm saying Commanders.
All right. I like Commanders, although I don't ever expect a rookie quarterback to win a Super Bowl. That's like my motto.
No, it'd be crazy.
It'd be crazy. I'm not saying it can't happen, and I'm not saying I'm not rooting for them. It would be awesome. But man, dude, I'm going to be biased on this, okay? I'm going to be really biased. The Bills piss me off. I don't know why, but the Bills are the team that I watch, and I go, even against Baltimore, I was watching them just going like, I don't know what it is, man, but I don't like you guys. You guys bother me. I don't want to root for you. But Mitch was a good guy, dude. Mitch was a good guy. Mitch was super friendly. He was always there to answer questions and to just have a conversation with. He was very respectful right up until the end. He always knew what to say, but he genuinely meant it. And he wanted to help you do your job while you helped him do his. And that was huge. Plus, he wore a visor his second season. It was super badass. I thought that was sick. And the third one here is very easy. If you could take a punch from Deontay Johnson mid-game, get benched, and re-sign to say, hey, I'm going to stick around for another year with a lower cap hit, you're committed. You're here. You were part of this. You believe in the Pittsburgh Steelers. And because of that, I believe in you, my friend. I'm going Mitch Trubisky. I think I'm rooting for Mitch and the Bills here. It stinks. I don't want to, but I don't have faith in Washington, and the other two would just suck. That would not be fun. I'm from the other side of the state. If you're not a Steelers fan, you are an Eagles fan, and nobody's worse than Eagles fans. So I'm going, it's got to be Mitch. I'm going Mitch.
Here's the one thing I will say in support of the Eagles.
Oof.
Saquon Barkley deserves a championship.
Yeah, that's true. Saquon's my guy, man.
That's the one thing.
It's true. I can't deny that. And if he got there, I could overlook it. I'd overlook it now. I could care less about these four Pittsburgh Steelers winning Super Bowls, but I could overlook the Kenny part for the Saquon.
Now, I am curious about one thing. Is Chris Oladokun no longer on the Chiefs?
Oh, and former Pittsburgh Steelers /
Super Bowl champion
Chris Oladokun. Shout out. Reminds me of the time Florio called one of our stories out and said, they're calling Chris Oladokun Super Bowl champion. Yeah, pal. Look at the ring. Right on the finger. Huge. Giant. Yeah, shout out Chris Oldokun. That would be the only I'd be very okay from if at the end of it, in 30 years from now, when they make a 30 for 30 on the Pittsburgh Steelers trying to find the next Ben Roethlisberger, I just hope that they mention multi-time Super Bowl champion Chris Oladokun. That's all I hope. That's all I hope I have some say, and I'll bring it up.
I was so happy. And again, very quick aside, I was so happy this preseason. I was down in South Carolina. I was at a sports bar, and I looked up and I said, oh, there's a preseason football game on. And don't you know, it was Chris Oladokun in the game for the Kansas City Chiefs against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I said, you know what? I know we had plans, but I need to sit down and watch a couple of these drives. And you know what? They were mostly 3 and outs, but you can't take that ring away from them.
Doesn't matter, dude. That ring, shit. I don't have a ring. You don't have a ring.
Yeah, no.
Steelers haven't had a ring in a long time. Chris Oladokun, buddy. Right there. And it's probably big, flashy, and glamorous, and he might get another one. Chris Oladokun would make it okay for the Chiefs, but I'm still not. Chiefs are last on this list, and a significant gap between them and anybody else, if we're going to be honest. All right. On the other side of this break, we're going to dive into all your questions and the show the same way we do every single day. First, we're just going to take a quick break here from a word from our boys over at DraftKings. All right, football fans, things are getting real. Whether your team has made it to the conference championship or not, there's still plenty of ways to enjoy the games. Get in on the action right now with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbooks. They're offering all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly by just betting $5. Don't let this slip away. Download the DraftKings app now and sign up using our code ALLSTEELERS. The crown is yours. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live in-game progress right as they are happening, making watching the games that much more exciting. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code ALLSTEELERS and bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code ALLSTEELERS only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Shout out our boys over at DraftKings. As that stopped, my cat walked into the office. And as he walked into the office, he just kind of like fell. Like he just like kind of, he went to stretch, but like couldn't catch himself and just tumbled right over. And I was like, oh, we concerned? No, he's fine. He's right here. Let's dive into your questions. We'll end the show the same way we do every single day. We'll answer everything you guys got for us. Make sure you toss them in the chat. With that said, Nick, what do you got?
Yeah, let's kick things off with Brother Man. Shout out to Brother Man, who says, why did the Steelers sign quarterback Skylar Thompson?
Because they needed a quarterback. Duh. I have no idea. Skylar Thompson was a wild one to me. Didn't see coming at all. I personally look at it just as like the Kyle Allen replacement for right now. This essentially, in my eyes, gets rid of the need to bring in John Rice Plumlee. I think they had fun last year. They like John Rice Plumlee. They're trying to be a little bit more serious. This isn't a backyard football program anymore. We are trying to win a Super Bowl. Bring in the real guys. QB4, Skylar Thompson. I look at it simply as just like the fourth guy, maybe the third guy if they don't bring back Kyle Allen. If they do bring back Kyle Allen and they don't bring back somebody else, which I would have a hard time believing that's going to happen. I look at Skylar as like the last depth chart. It was super cheap. Why not? You know, that's why they signed him. It means almost nothing, but he'll be here and he'll complete 2 passes this season. And, you know, like Kyle Allen, we will remember it forever.
Somebody needs to throw passes at OTAs. That's all we're going to say.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Let's go over to Solo. Appreciate you, Solo. Says, hey, guys, Mr. 8 and 9 predictor is back. I was nearly correct this year. Anyway, we should not sign a wide receiver free agent. 2006, 2009, 2010, ring any bells? Wide receiver free agents don't like to sign here. Go get 2 in the 2025 draft because 2025 and 2026 are not the Steelers Super Bowl year. 26 and 27 with Justin Fields, that's when you got your Super Bowl run.
All right. That's That's a tough time, but I'll say there aren't a billion options in free agency, for wide receivers. It's not like it's a loaded market with all these crazy options that the Pittsburgh Steelers can go get. It's headlined by T. Higgins, and then it kind of settles down pretty significantly. But there will be names out there. I'm pretty sure Marquise Brown is a free agent after this season, which, I mean, say what you will. He's a starting wide receiver that you could throw the football to. You can't go get him now. Now he's signed to the Baltimore Ravens for next season in Deontay Johnson. I would say don't double down on a wide receiver in free agency, and I would agree with you with sticking to the NFL draft to go get at least one of these guys. I think in the first 2 rounds, there are too many options that you could go get and feel comfortable about, but you don't want to wait too much longer than that. And you have other positions of need. That would be my only fight back on getting 2. I also don't disagree with you that 2025, 2026 is the Steelers' Super Bowl run. I don't believe it is. I don't know if 26, 27 is. I do like the optimism in Justin Fields. I'm going to stick with that one. But I think I would split it even. Sign 1. T. Higgins would still be my name. And draft 1. And it kind of depends on how the dominoes fall, but maybe a first-round pick would be worthy. But I think you might be able to get some guys in the second round.
All right, let's go to Soapy Nugget, who says, I saw something on a Steelers Instagram page saying that the reason that Pittsburgh isn't bringing back Najee is because they want to back with more speed. Is this true? And if so, who would you want?
I would guess that that's got some truth behind it. I don't know. I haven't heard that personally, that is their designed plan, but you got to imagine that they're looking for a little bit more explosiveness in their running game. That, they wanted to get Najee Harris to be Derrick Henry. They realized that Najee Harris is half of Derrick Henry, but he's not the other half, and that's the explosive half. I do think that they would go out and get a little bit of a quicker back. Who would you want? Caleb Johnson's a good one. Judkins, after last night, definitely moved himself up the NFL draft pretty significantly. Ashton Genty's an easy answer. Who's the dude out of North Carolina that we continued?
Omari and Hampton.
Omari and Hampton. Thank you very much. I'll never remember that name. And I think Tre'Davion Henderson's also an option as well. Those are like fast, but also physical runners. And that's what the Steelers are going to look for if we're going to be realistic, is physical, but has a really good burst to them to match Jaylen Warren. So those would be my names in the first 2 rounds. And I would guess the first 2 rounds is when the Steelers add a running back.
All right, let's go over to Territorio Steeler, who says, hey, Noah and Nick, why are we waiting for all the good coaches to be gone to fire ours and not have anybody to replace them with?
I didn't read that question, and then as it came out, that was awesome. I said it yesterday, and I think every day that passes, I believe it more. The hype about the Pittsburgh Steelers making a bunch of coaching changes might not be very true. On the other side of that, the Steelers' contracts expire at some point this offseason, rather soon. I would imagine it's this week, if not next week. And then they'll start hiring guys for those that they don't replace. I think that they should do it sooner. I agree with you. I don't know why they're waiting. It's just the Pittsburgh Steelers and the way they go about things. They take forever to go through exit meetings and so on and so forth. I would go hire somebody. They are going to miss out on a lot of good guys. At the same time, position coaches usually are more available. You could probably go get somebody a little bit easier than you could offensive and defensive coordinators. I wouldn't expect TA to be gone if he hasn't been gone at this point, unless they're thinking somebody on one of these 4 teams still in the playoffs. But if they're not, I would just look at it and say every day that passes, the chances TA is gone is significantly less.
All right, let's go over to Cody Silva, who says, are the Steelers' first-round picks cursed? Can you guys tell me the last time we had a first-round pick that lasted on this team? Our drafts do not work out.
All right, so I agree with that. The optimism here, the positive side of this is that Omar Khan's only had 2 NFL drafts, and I'm not ready to give up on Broderick Jones, and I'm definitely not ready to give up on Troy Fautanu. So who knows what happens there. Before that, it was Kevin Colbert, which Kevin was a fantastic drafter. Fantastic. At the end of it, there were some misses. There were some big misses, definitely. But, I mean, that's after 20 years of a lot of fantastic draft picks, like insane draft picks. And, you know, to finish on a bad note, I get it. It was time to retire. He did. Now it's Omar Khan. I think that is something to look at and say, don't look at the trend because there's somebody new behind it right now.
Yeah, I will say, to answer the question, when's the last time they had one that unequivocally worked out? 2017, I think TJ Watt worked out pretty well for the Steelers.
Pretty well. Who's 2018? 2018 was
Terrell Edmonds.
Yeah,
which,
Terrell
okay.
Edmonds.
I mean, not a first rounder, but an NFL starter.
Definitely reached on that one. Reached on Edmonds, but he was there. Reached on that whole draft class, to be honest with you. Shout out Sean Davis, man. Shout out.
All right, let's jump to Shower Curtain, who says, my question is, if Arthur Smith stays without Russ, does he end up utilizing the entire field?
Yes. The answer is yes. That was not an Arthur Smith thing. That was a design the offense to the guy throwing the football, and the guy throwing the football couldn't use the middle of the field. I fully expect Justin Fields to be able to utilize the middle of the field, and I expect it to be utilized a lot in the offense. I mean, it was utilized a lot in the offense. You could go back to the first game. The first deep ball George Pickens caught is right down, is not in the numbers. It's on the inside hash. He catches it right on the inside hash. I mean, it was going to be utilized. Yes. The answer to this is yes.
All right, let's go to Loswald, who says, Noah, with the Bears calling for Tomlin, was it their first round pick that's tied to the potential trade, or do you not know?
I don't know. I don't know what the compensation was. I heard it was confirmed that it was the Bears. I knew that a team called. I didn't know what that team was until it came out. But to be very honest with you, my brain didn't think to work or to see who it was. So that's on me. I should have did some digging. When it was confirmed, I didn't get draft compensation. I wasn't told draft compensation. They did not know draft compensation. So I don't know if that means that the conversation didn't get far enough, or if I just am unaware of what's going on. I think it could be both. I could see the Steelers answering the phone, the Bears going, hey, we want to call you about Mike Tomlin, and them going, don't waste your time. And that's the end of it. So I do not know, but I would imagine it was a first round pick. Yeah.
All right, let's go to Thomas Dale, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, keep Justin Fields, trade George for picks, sign T. Higgins, draft Ibuka, and Caleb Johnson. I don't see how that doesn't work for the Steelers. T, Calvin, Roman, and Emeka sounds like a good group to me.
It does. It does. And even if it doesn't work in 2025, maybe it works in 2026. I think it's a young, developing, this has potential group. You're taking Roman's still an unknown commodity. You got to see what you have in this kid. But the rest of them, I mean, and Ibuka, I mean, also a rookie. Nothing's guaranteed as a rookie, but I still like it. I do like the moves here. And I mean, I don't know what you're getting for George, but you're probably getting a late first, early second round pick for him if that's the move. And I mean, you could probably get somebody else. Like at that point, you might be able to get a Sam Morrison as well. You might be able to move up. Ben Morrison, that's who it is. Sam Morrison's the artist. That you might be able to move up. And yeah, Brown Eyed Girl, I'm pretty sure. No, that's Van Morrison.
That's Van Morrison.
Yep, we're getting there. Morrison's.
One of the Morrison.
Yeah. I think you'd be able maybe to move up and get maybe an Ashton Genty and come back. A lot of options, but yeah, I agree with this. I like this one.
All right, let's jump down to Vibin with the Dogs. Vibin checking in saying, Will Howard as QB2 would be my move. I like him.
Yeah, I look at Will Howard was not an NFL guy in my head last night. Whew. I mean, I don't think there was anybody watching that game going, this guy's not going to be good in the NFL. This guy stinks. This guy is terrible. Is he going to be good? I still have no idea. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's a starting quarterback. What I will say is that Will Howard was a 5th round pick in my eyes Monday at 7:29. Monday at 10:30 p.m. He might be a 2nd round pick. Like that guy looked impressive. It was crazy how impressive he looked, actually. Again, bad draft class. Quarterbacks always look good in college that aren't good in the NFL, but he killed it and definitely helped his draft stock. I'd be about Will Howard as a number 2. I would be.
All right, let's go to another question here that revolves around Will Howard and one other. Real Ish says, would the Steelers take a flyer on Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss or Will Howard out of OSU in rounds 3 or 4, or will somebody get to them before rounds 3 or 4?
I think both of them might be gone before rounds 3 or 4, but I still don't know. Like, this quarterback class is not deep. The need for quarterback is significant, but I also think that guys are going to get their bridge quarterback and be okay with it. Like, this has the feel of Kenny Pickett going at 20 and nobody else going till like the 3rd round. The only difference is Shedeur and Cam Ward will go top 5. Jalen Milroe will go somewhere in the middle of the 1st round, and then we might not have a quarterback for a long time. So it's hard to guess right now. I could see the Steelers taking a flyer on both Jackson Dart and Will Howard in this draft. I definitely could. Especially Jackson Dart. That's a guy that has potential. He's just not developed enough. I think both of them could be. And in that round 3 range is where I see them getting a quarterback.
All right, let's go over to Shower Curtain again, who says, any chance the Steelers score both Emeka Egbuka and Quinshon Judkins in this draft?
Why not? Why not? You know, Mike Tomlin's saying, he loves Georgia Bulldogs because they're champions. Well, the champions right now are the Ohio State Buckeyes, and they look unstoppable. So I would not say no. I think it fits a lot of what the Steelers need on the offensive side of the ball at 2 major positions. It gives their quarterback, which we're thinking is Justin Fields, plenty of talent around him. Judkins works very well in a 2 running back system, as we saw during his time in Ohio State. Great work with Jaylen Warren. I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to say no.
All right, let's jump to Jason, who says, why was it so hard for Mike Tomlin to cut ties with Dan Moore Jr.?
Because Dan Moore earned his starting job going into the 2024 season. I don't think that he was as good at the end as he should have been. It definitely was a downhill slope, but the entire offensive line was worse by the end of the season. So maybe that was just the O-line thing. Dan Moore won that job going into the season. He was very impressive in training camp and very impressive at the beginning. There was a good chunk of time during the first couple weeks of that season where Dan Moore was the best offensive lineman the Pittsburgh Steelers had, and that held true. So I mean, that's why, because he was a dude who earned it. Last year I thought Broderick should have started, but it kind of worked out in their favor because Dan can't play the right side and Chooks needed to go. So it worked for the Steelers. But I mean, this past season, he earned that job. He did.
All right, let's go to Grayson, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, do you guys think the part of the reason the Steelers defense doesn't stay healthy is because of Tomlin's practice schedule? The way he does padded practices has to be brutal.
It's not. I hear what you're saying, and the Steelers are like known to have padded practices. They hit more than anybody else in training camp. I get all that. So early injuries, I could see that being the reason that part's true, but the NFL is very scripted once the season starts, and you only get a certain amount of padded practices. And later in the season, you're not allowed any padded practices. So in training camp, yes, like I could see that. I could. But I've also heard guys say, like, you need to hit in training camp. Otherwise, once you start getting hit, your body doesn't know how to adjust. And it's not like the Steelers are suiting up every single day going, we're hitting every day. They probably hit on a 6-day cycle, maybe 2 to 3 times. And those 2 to 3 times are, some of them are 60%, some of them are 100%, some of them are 40, but later in the season, there's no padded practices. You're not allowed to have padded practices. So I don't know what it is. The Steelers have a soft tissue injury. I would be very curious to know if the entire NFL does. And if it is, maybe it is the padded practices. Maybe it's the reason they brought in a new strength and conditioning coach last year.
All right, let's go over to Real Ish, who says, what do you think of the Steelers being rumored to draft one of Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, or Kenneth Mason? A lot of defensive line flavor there.
I was gonna say I kind of like all of them. Like I don't have any issues with any of them. I think a lot of them are the same guy and or have the same strategy, and I'd be okay with, like, that's what the Steelers need. I think that you could replace a nose tackle in free agency and have a starting nose tackle and be okay. Move Keanu Benton to the 3 technique and be fine there. I think depth would be huge, and I mean, if you're going to take any of these 3 guys, especially early, I'd be okay with it. I would be. The Steelers need depth. Defensive line is maybe 4, maybe tied for 3rd with corner on my list of needs for the Pittsburgh Steelers during the NFL draft. And I expect them to go after them early, especially because it's not like there's a ton, but there's enough, and they're pretty good into the second round.
All right, let's go to Brother Man once again, who says, why can't Justin Fields be the Steelers franchise quarterback? Chicago failed him, and now the Steelers, if they let this slip by without trying.
Yeah, I think that they should try. I do. I'm a firm believer that Justin Fields could be a franchise quarterback in the NFL. I am. He struggled when he showed up at Pittsburgh. Like, I was the guy coming on this show telling you guys, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Justin Fields ain't it. Justin took massive steps forward by the time his starting season was over. And that just showed me there is so much untapped potential with this guy. You have no idea what you're going to get from him in a full year of starting in a real offense, where this would be, I believe, just the 2nd time in his career where he would have the same offensive coordinator for back-to-back seasons. That's massive. That's huge. You get some weapons around this guy. I don't know. Like, Justin's 25 years old, and I get it. The NFL has given up on him as a franchise quarterback. I'm not. I'm just not. I think the Bears were in a situation where they would have tried to make it work if they picked 5th, but they picked 1st, and they had to get Caleb Williams because Caleb Williams was Caleb Williams, and the NFL draft class was loaded with quarterbacks, and you couldn't pass up on him, and that was understandable. But if the Bears didn't trade with the Carolina Panthers to give Justin Fields another try, Justin would have been their guy, and they would have kept rolling with them and kept trying to figure it out. And the Bears were better a year ago than they were this past season. That is very important here. Is Justin Fields had the Bears looking way better than they looked in 2024. And that's got to say something.
Tyson Bagent had the Bears looking a lot better than they did.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding. I do like Tyson Bagent.
Shout out.
Quarterback.
Shout out. Did I ever tell you? I think
Scary dad. Yes.
Scary dad. Did I told you definitely about the Senior Bowl interaction with his dad, but not, did I say it live on the show? Have I said it on the show before?
I think you have, but you can always reiterate for new listeners.
Yeah, if you guys don't know, so Tyson Baggett was at the Senior Bowl. The last time I was at the Senior Bowl, I was standing there. He's from Shepherd or something, and he looked terrible. You know, he looks great now. Shout out Tyson Baggett. A huge fan, to be honest. He looked terrible at the Senior Bowl, and I was making it known that he looked terrible. I was sitting there talking to the person next to me, going, man, dude, this guy stinks. This guy's terrible. Like, what are we doing? Why is he even here? Who invited this guy? And somebody slaps me, and they go, yo, dude, that's his dad behind you. And I was like, all right. And I turned around, and I didn't know at the time that his dad is a world champion arm wrestler. So he's massive. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. This is how I die, right here, talking smack on a Shepherd University quarterback in Mobile, Alabama. So shout out Tyson Baggett. Huge fan. Your dad is terrifying.
Let's go to Daquan, who says, do you guys think the Steelers are going to sign a fullback next season? Maybe the revenge of Jack Coletto.
Yeah, I don't know if it'd be Jack Coletto, but I do think the Steelers bring in a fullback. I do. I personally believe the Connor Hayward project is coming to an end, and the Steelers need an actual fullback, and there's a massive difference between Connor Hayward and Patrick Ricard. They want a Patrick Ricard, as they should. Let it be known.
All right, let's go to Thomas, who says, could you guys see us pursue Cooper Kupp if T. Higgins doesn't work out?
Yes, I can. I think Cooper Kupp is going to be let go from the Rams this season. I think Matt Stafford's probably going to walk away from LA or retire. The Rams are going to have to blow it up. Cooper Kupp's an easy one. An easy one. They're going to let him go. And the Steelers called. They had interest in him during the season. He was a name to watch. And I was told that. I think I might have been the first one reporting that the Pittsburgh Steelers were interested in Cooper Kupp. And why would that interest fade? They loved him at the time. I don't see why they wouldn't now.
All right, let's go over to Solo One. Appreciate you, Solo. Says, perfect backup quarterback for Justin Fields is Joshua Hobbs. How would you feel about bringing him back? I think Josh Dobbs is the name there. Ben had perfect backups in Batch and Leftwich. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like Josh Dobbs. I don't know if Josh Dobbs is a guy that steps in and wins you a bunch of games, but I like Josh Dobbs. I think Josh Dobbs is a good, reliable backup as like a come in and win a game. If you need him to win a game, I think he's got the same skill set as Justin Fields, which is cool. The Steelers did love that guy when he was here. I don't know if they'd be interested in bringing him back, kind of like, all right, been there, done that. Let's go somewhere else. I think that the backup market as a whole would have to decide that. There are interesting names. Tyrod Taylor is going to be out there. Drew Lock is going to be out there. The Steelers were fans of Drew Lock coming out of the NFL draft. Like, I think that the market is pretty wide, that they'll have some options. Josh Dobbs is definitely a good one. Big Ben loved Josh Dobbs. I don't know if he's Batch or Byron Leftwich level, but he, I could see him as a QB3.
All right, let's go over to Wes, who says, hey, guys, Pittsburgh signed former Rams defensive back Cameron McCutcheon. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't think he's a guy that, you have to get to know, unless he calls me tomorrow and says, hey, let's do an exclusive interview, then you guys should get to know him. But until then, I don't think he's somebody that he's never played an NFL game. He wasn't on a team last year or practice squad. Just kind of feels like a guy that they signed with a bunch of potential, but until you make an NFL roster, until you make it through the summer, until you get on the field, there's not really much to know. So he's a dude who comes from a sound defense. I'll say that. But I don't know if I'm putting a bunch of stock in him to be on the roster in 2025.
All right, we got two more. Let's start with W. Travis, who says, who would you want more, Tetaroa McMillan or Ashton Ginty?
Dude, thank God you said that name, because I was staring at here just going, T-Mac. Who is T-Mac? For like 10 minutes now. Ashton Ginty would be the name. Wide receivers, man, if I got to go top tier wide receiver or top tier running back, those like explosive, crazy, you're a star running back almost always work out. Not 100%, CJ Spiller, I still remember back in the day being the guy, never turned out to be the guy. But there have been, it's much more likely that stud turns into a stud, especially Ashton Ginty level. Like if we were talking, would you rather Caleb Williams at the end of the first round or McMillan? You go McMillan. But if you're going to go Ashton Ginty level or running back, which is like a Zeke, a Saquon, a Nick Chubb level running back, you got to go him every time. It's almost guaranteed they're going to work out.
All right, and let's close it off with Danny, who says, what running back is available via free agency that would be worth signing?
Aaron Jones is a name that comes to mind. I don't really know. Can we pull up the list of free agent running backs? Aaron Jones is the big one. James Conner is gone already.
Obviously, AJ Dillon's up there. Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams.
Nick Chubb would be awesome, but I just don't think I don't think that's really realistic. Javonte Williams excites me. I do think that Javonte Williams has more talent than the Denver Broncos let him have. He did get injured, which is, big, and maybe never came back from that injury. But I still think he's got a bunch of talent. If you're going to bring him in as like a running back 3, I'd be all about it. But I think he'd want a higher role than that. Nick Chubb would be a running back 1. There's no questions asked there. Jaylen Warren and Aaron Jones, I don't know if I'm all about that. AJ Dillon, I'm good on. That might be it.
The only other names out here are J.K. Dobbins, which are the Chargers really going to let him get to
they're not going to let him
open
walk.
market? Probably not. Alexander Madison had a decent year in Las Vegas. And then if you want speed, Rico Dowdle going to be on the open market.
Yeah, again, maybe as a running back, like you want to bring somebody like that in as an RB3, that's a great RB3. Great RB3. And if you're going to use them 4 times a game like they did Cordero Patterson, great. You want to stick him back there as a kick returner? Fantastic. But I don't think anybody on the free agency market is worth going to get to be the RB2. You know, your second running back, if Jalen is your first, should be a rookie. You should take advantage of a loaded draft class if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers. So
yeah,
that would be my option.
Of all those names, the only one that I'm trusting is Aaron Jones, and that's to come in and be. But even that, you're rolling the dice on a 30-plus-year-old running back, but
who gets hurt a lot.
Yes, but if he's healthy, I mean, you saw what he did this year: 1,100 plus yards, 5 touchdowns, pretty good for a very good Minnesota Vikings team. We do have one more that came in under the wire, starting with Roger Steeler. Says, why can't Tomlin move on from Terrell Austin or Arthur Smith when it's obvious that they are not the answer?
All right, so 2 things here. I'm going to combat both of them in different ways. Arthur Smith, I think the people should still have some trust in Arthur Smith. I do. I think the Russ thing played way too big of a role in that situation. I think the injuries on the offensive line played a pretty significant role there. I think not having a wide receiver core played a pretty significant role there. I think, not having a good quarterback at the end played a pretty significant role. I think all of that played into Arthur Smith not being good. And there were signs in the beginning with Justin Fields where Arthur Smith was pretty good. He was decent. So I have faith in Arthur Smith. Maybe not the biggest faith, but I have faith. Why can't Mike Tomlin move on from TA is like asking, why can't Mike Tomlin move on from Mike Tomlin? And that's where we're at in this situation. Is it's kind of like I'm going to continue to pound the drum to say TA is nothing but a scapegoat in this situation. That is all he is. If Mike Tomlin was going to get rid of Terrell Austin and bring in a defensive coordinator that he was going to give the defense to, okay, we have an argument on our hands. That's a real thought that everybody should have. But if the argument is, if the thought process is, which is real, this is what it would be. This is what this would be. You fire TA, you hire the next TA. And by TA, I mean Keith Butler. By TA, I mean a guy that is going to just be the scapegoat. He's going to be named defensive coordinator. He's going to work with the defense. He is going to help with schematics and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, who is the defensive coordinator in Pittsburgh? Who is the defensive play caller in Pittsburgh? Who controls this defense? Who makes the defensive adjustments? Who makes the defensive decisions as a whole almost every single time? Mike Tomlin. So if you're firing TA, it's nothing but a scapegoat, and nobody should have expectations that the next guy is going to look any different at all. It's just like when people ask, like, why is Arthur Smith playing not to lose? Because that's not Arthur Smith's decision. That's Mike Tomlin's decision. Mike Tomlin is the reason that these things happen because he's a very, we're going to follow my philosophy head coach. And on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, Keith Butler let it be known a number of times, and we already knew it, but late in his career, he said it a number of times. I don't call the defense. I'll make those decisions. Like, this is Mike Tomlin's defense. So the question should be, why can't Mike Tomlin get out of his own way and stop calling the defense? And that's because that's what Mike Tomlin wants to do. That's what he thinks he's best at. The Steelers defense hasn't been consistently elite since Dick LeBeau gave up that defense.
It's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back tomorrow. I feel like I just ended on a rather aggressive note. So I hope everybody take a deep breath. Let it all go, and we'll come back tomorrow with some joyous talk. With that said, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.